The alien forest was never quiet at night, but this night felt different. The wind was too cold, the trees were too still, and even the glowing plants looked nervous, bending as if they were hiding from something. Evan, a lonely human living far from the big cities, walked between the tall blue trees with a small lantern in his hand. He had come out to collect firewood, but every minute he felt the air grow heavier, like someone was watching him from the darkness. He bent to pick up a fallen branch when he heard it running footsteps. Fast, uneven, scared, Evan froze. He knew those were not the sounds of an animal. Animals ran smoothly. This was different. Something small, someone small, was running for their life. Before he could decide what to do, a figure burst through the glowing bushes. It was a little alien girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, her long hair shining like silver strings in the moonlight. Her eyes were wide with fear, her breath sharp and painful. She kept looking over her shoulder as she ran, like death itself was chasing her. Evan didn't move. She didn't see him. She was too afraid to notice anything. Then he heard the voices. Rough, angry voices. Not human. Find her. She can't escape. Bring the child back before sunrise. Evan's heart jumped. Hunters. 3 tall figures appeared behind the girl, carrying strange weapons that glowed red at the edges. They were following her smell, her footprints, her fear. Evan ducked behind a fallen log, holding his breath as they scanned the area. Where did she go? One shouted. Search the trees. Another answered. The little girl tripped, falling on her knees only a few steps from where Evan hid. She tried to get up, but she was too tired. Her small hands shook as she pushed against the ground. Tears fell down her glowing cheeks. Evan couldn't stay still anymore. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He just moved. He sprinted out from behind the log, grabbed the girl's arm, and pulled her towards the thick trees. She gasped in shock, ready to scream, but he covered her mouth gently and whispered, I'm helping you. Quiet. The hunters heard the rustle of leaves and turned sharply. There, someone took her. Evan pulled the girl through a narrow path between jagged rocks. The hunters were too big to fit easily, buying them a few precious seconds. He dragged her deeper into the forest until he found a dark cave hidden behind vines. He pushed the leaves aside and led her inside. Inside the cave, the air was cool and damp. The darkness was thick, but safe. Evan put a finger to his lips. Stay quiet, he whispered. The girl crawled into the shadows, hugging her knees, her breath shaking. Outside, the hunters searched. Where did they go? That was a human. Find them both. The footsteps grew louder, then quieter, then closer again. Evan's heart pounded so hard, he thought they might hear it. The girl trembled, covering her ears. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the hunters' voices faded away. Evan let out a slow breath and sank down against the cave wall. The girl stared at him with big shining eyes, unsure if he was a friend or just another danger. He offered her his water bottle. She didn't take it at first. Her hands stayed tight around her knees. Then, slowly, she reached out and sipped. Her breathing softened. After a long silence, she whispered, Why? Why did you help me? Humans don't help my kind. Evan shook his head. You were in trouble. That's enough reason. She hesitated, then said her name. Riva. Her voice trembled as she continued. You shouldn't have saved me. Now someone even more dangerous will come. He always comes when I cry for help. Evan frowned. Who? Riva's eyes filled with fear again. My tribe's deadliest warrior, she whispered. And right then, deep outside the cave, the ground gave a low, heavy vibration, like a giant had taken a single step. The forest was waking up, and something powerful was already on its way. Morning arrived slowly, spreading soft gold light through the trees and touching the cave entrance like a warm hand. Evan opened his eyes first. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw the small alien girl curled up near the rock wall, her tiny body wrapped tightly in his extra jacket. She slept like someone who had been running for days, her breath soft and uneven. Evan quietly stood and stepped outside. The forest looked calm now, but something about the silence felt wrong, too clean, too perfect, as if the night's danger was only hiding, waiting for the next chance to strike. He scanned the trees, listening for footsteps, growls, or whispers. Nothing, only the soft hum of glowing plants. When he returned inside, Riva was awake. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at him with tired suspicion. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed every move he made. "You hungry?" Evan asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded once. He pulled out a small food pack and handed it to her. She opened it slowly, sniffing the smell, then took a tiny bite. After a few minutes, her shoulders relaxed a little. Evan sat nearby, giving her space. He didn't want to scare her. "Those hunters," he said quietly, "why were they chasing you?" Riva swallowed hard and looked down. Because of this." She lifted her left sleeve carefully, almost as if she was afraid of her own arm. When the skin was exposed, Evan's eyes widened. There was a glowing silver symbol shaped like a twisting flame that pulsed faintly. Under her skin, Evan didn't know what it meant. But he could tell it wasn't normal. "What is that?" he asked softly. Riva covered it quickly, fear flashing in her eyes. "It is a mark of my tribe, only special children have it." "Special how?" She shook her head. "I should not tell humans." Evan didn't push further. She was already scared enough. But he knew one thing for sure. This little girl carried something important. Something worth chasing, worth kidnapping, and maybe even worth killing. Riva looked at the cave entrance anxiously. "We have to go," she whispered. "If we stay here, he will find us." "Who?" Evan asked again. This time she answered. "Kareth, the deadliest warrior of my people. He is my mother's brother. When someone hurts me, he comes." Evan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a good thing." Riva shook her head violently. "No, he thinks humans are dangerous. If he sees you with me, he will think you stole me. He will not listen. He will kill you first and ask questions later." Evan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Great." But he still stood, helped her pack her things, and led her out of the cave. He didn't know where to take her, but he couldn't leave her alone. She looked so fragile, yet something told him she wasn't ordinary at all. As they walked, Riva kept glancing around, her ears twitching slightly at sounds he couldn't hear. She stopped suddenly and grabbed Evan's hand tightly. Something moved. She whispered. Evan listened. Nothing, just a soft breeze between the trees. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded. "I can feel vibrations in the ground. Someone is following us." Evan looked around again, more carefully this time. He noticed footprints, deep ones near a tree. Footprints larger than any humans. Fresh. The bark on that same tree had a long cut, as if a giant claw had scraped it. Riva stepped back in fear. "He is close," she whispered. "Too close." Evan swallowed. "Look, I'll get you to my cabin. It's safer than being out here." Riva didn't argue. She walked beside him silently, gripping his sleeve like a frightened child. Gripping a lifeline, but the forest kept sending warnings. Birds flew away suddenly. Leaves trembled without wind. A branch cracked behind them. Evan and Riva froze. Slow footsteps echoed. Somewhere deep in the trees, slow, heavy, confident. The kind of footsteps that belonged to someone who didn't fear anything. Riva's voice shook as she said the words Evan didn't want to hear. Evan's cabin stood between two giant bluewood trees. its roof covered in leaves, its walls old but strong. Usually, it felt peaceful like a quiet corner of the world where nothing dangerous could reach him. But today, even the air around the cabin felt tense, like the forest was holding its breath. Riva stopped at the edge of the clearing and looked around with sharp, frightened eyes. "This place. It is too open," she whispered. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's safe. I've lived here for years. Nothing ever comes this close." She didn't look convinced. Inside, the cabin was small but warm. Evan guided her to a chair and poured water into a cup. Her hands were still shaking when she took it. He tried to make her feel safe. "You can rest here," he said. "Nobody will find us." Riva's eyes darted to the windows. "He will." Evan sighed but didn't argue. Instead, he went to the stove and started heating soup. The smell slowly filled the room, pushing away the cold fear lingering in the air. Riva watched him silently, studying every movement like she was trying to understand him. Finally, she asked, "Why do you help me? You don't even know me." Evan smiled faintly. "I didn't help you because I knew you. I helped you because you were in danger." Riva opened her mouth to reply, but everything froze. Evan felt it first in his bones, a deep vibration, like the earth itself was breathing. The wooden floor trembled softly. A strange chill crawled up his spine. Riva stood abruptly, her cup falling and shattering on the floor. "He is here," she whispered in a voice that didn't sound like a child anymore. It sounded ancient, certain. Evan tried to listen, but at first he heard nothing. Then, slowly, the sounds came, heavy footsteps far away, each one sending a faint shiver through the ground. They were not the footsteps of a human. They were bigger, stronger, more controlled. Evan peeked through the window. Nothing. The forest was still. Too still. Riva walked toward the window and closed her eyes. She placed her palm on the glass as if she could feel the world outside. Her skin glowed faintly. He is moving slow. He is searching. And he is very angry. "Maybe it's just an animal," Evan tried to say, but even he didn't believe it. "No animal moves like him," she whispered. Another vibration hit the ground, heavier this time. Evan grabbed the doorknob and stepped outside, ignoring Riva's frightened gasp. The morning light wasn't enough to comfort him. The clearing looked normal, yet wrong. Evan scanned the trees. Something had changed. A tree on the left had a new mark scraped into its bark, a long, sharp cut. Almost a meter long, fresh, deep, done by something with claws like blades. Evan turned slowly. Another tree had been sliced. And another. A path of claw marks circled the clearing, as if someone was marking territory, or warning him. Riva stepped out behind him, her breath catching in her throat. "He marked the land. That means he wants to fight whoever is hiding me." Evan felt a cold drop of fear slide down his spine. "Great," he muttered. "Just what I needed." Riva grabbed his sleeve tightly. "You should run. He will not hurt me, but he will hurt you." Evan shook his head. "I'm not leaving you alone." She swallowed hard. "Then you will face him." A sudden loud crack echoed through the forest, like a giant branch, snapping under powerful weight. Evan spun toward the sound. Something moved in the shadows. Something tall. Something broad. Something watching them, not rushing. Not hiding. Just waiting. The forest around them seemed to bow under its presence. Riva's voice was barely a whisper. "He's testing the air. He's sensing where I am." Evan stepped slightly in front of the girl without thinking. The thing in the forest shifted again. Closer now, deliberate, slow, a predator showing it. Didn't need to hurry. The cabin lights flickered for a moment. Then came the sound that froze both of them completely. A low, thunderous growl, followed by a calm, almost gentle voice that carried through the trees. "Human. Return the child." Riva's hand tightened around Evan's arm. "He found us," she said again. But this time, Evan finally believed her. Dawn spread across the forest like a pale blanket, but the light did not bring comfort. Instead, it revealed a strange silence. No birds sang. No insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed afraid to move through the trees. Evan stepped out of the cabin slowly, his heart beating faster than his footsteps. Riva stayed close behind him, gripping the edge of his shirt with trembling fingers. The clearing looked empty at first. Everything was still. Too still. Evan scanned the shadows between the trees, waiting for any sign of movement. Then he noticed it, an outline, tall and motionless, standing only a few meters away. A shape carved from darkness. The figure stepped into the light. Evan's breath caught in his throat. He had never seen anything like him. The warrior was huge, at least 7 feet tall, with dark armor made from bone-like plates that glowed softly with blue patterns. Muscles moved under his skin as if carved from stone. 2 long blades hung across his back, and each step he took made the ground vibrate. His eyes were the most terrifying part, bright blue flames, sharp and cold, scanning the clearing like they could cut through metal. Riva gasped softly. "Kareth." The warrior's gaze locked onto Evan. "Human," he said in a low, deep voice that echoed through the trees. "You stand between me and my blood. Move." Evan's legs felt weak. Every instinct told him to run. But when he looked at Riva's terrified face, something inside him refused to move aside. He stepped forward instead. "No," Evan said quietly. "She's safe with me." Kareth's eyes narrowed. "Safe with you?" The 2 words sounded like an insult. "She was being hunted," Evan said. "I protected her." The warrior took 1 slow step forward, and the air seemed to grow heavier. "Humans do not protect our kind. Humans take. Humans harm. Humans lie." Riva suddenly stepped out from behind Evan. "Uncle," she cried, her voice cracking. "He saved me. He didn't hurt me." Kareth paused, the flames in his eyes flickering. For a moment, it seemed like he was listening, like he wanted to believe her. Then anger twisted his face. "You are frightened," Kareth growled. "He has confused you. I will free you from him." Before Evan could react, Kareth charged. He moved so fast that even the air seemed to split around him. Evan barely dodged the first strike. The warrior's blade sliced the ground where Evan had been standing, leaving a deep cut in the soil. "Stop!" Riva screamed. Kareth didn't stop. He swung again, this time aimed at Evan's chest. Evan jumped back, falling onto the ground as the blade passed inches from his face. Dirt exploded around him. Kareth circled him like a giant predator, eyes burning with fury. "You dare touch my kin?" he roared. Evan forced himself to stand, breathing hard, sweat running down his face. "I protected her," he shouted. "Those hunters," Kareth lunged again. Evan dodged to the side, rolling under a fallen branch. The warrior's punch hit the tree instead, shattering it like glass. Splinters flew everywhere. Riva ran toward them, crying, "Uncle, stop. He is not the enemy." Kareth ignored her. He turned back to Evan, raising both arms for a final strike. Evan knew he couldn't outrun him. He knew he couldn't fight him. But he stepped in front of Riva anyway, spreading his arms wide. "Leave her alone," Evan yelled. That single moment changed everything. Kareth's blade stopped centimeters from Evan's throat. Not because Evan blocked it, but because Riva ran between them and threw her arms around Evan's waist, crying into his shirt. Her small body shook as she whispered, "Don't hurt him." "Please." Kareth froze. His eyes widened, not with anger, but with shock. Slowly, almost painfully, he lowered his weapon. He looked at Riva, then at Evan, then back at Riva. The deadliest warrior in the forest took one step back, breathing heavily, as if the truth she spoke was finally sinking into his mind. The silence returned. But this time, it was not the silence of danger. It was the silence before a difficult truth. Kareth stood perfectly still, his massive chest rising and falling as he tried to understand what he was seeing. Riva clung tightly to Evan, her small arms wrapped around him like she was shielding him from a monster. Her glow, faint but warm, pulsed against Evan's chest, and Kareth stared at it with disbelief. "No," Kareth whispered, his voice trembling for the first time. She chooses the human?" Riva stepped back slowly but stayed close to Evan's side. Her eyes bright, trembling, and full of fear locked onto Kareth's. "Uncle, he saved me," she said softly. "He carried me. He gave me water. He hid me in the cave. He risked his life for mine." She spread her arms wide, her small body standing between the warrior and the human. Kareth's fists tightened. His jaw muscles hardened. He couldn't understand it. To him, humans were weak, selfish, dangerous. But this one stood like a shield. "He is lying," Kareth finally growled. "Humans do not risk their lives for us. He wants something." Evan stepped forward, wiping dust from his hands. "I don't want anything," he said firmly. "I saw a child in danger. That's all." Kareth's eyes burned hotter. "You speak boldly," he growled, "for someone who nearly died under my blade." Evan didn't flinch. "Yeah, well," he muttered, "I didn't exactly enjoy that part." Riva tugged at Evan's sleeve urgently. "Please stop talking," she whispered. "He is still angry." But Evan had reached a breaking point. He had been attacked, chased, and nearly killed, and now he was being accused of kidnapping the very child he saved. He stepped forward, putting himself between Kareth and Riva once again. "Listen," Evan said. "I didn't kidnap her. I didn't hurt her. I didn't trick her. I helped her. If you want to fight, fine. But leave her out of it." Kareth's eyes sharpened. And then, without warning, he attacked again. This time, there was no hesitation, no testing. Kareth moved with full speed and full force. He drew one of his massive blades and swung it down in a deadly arc. Evan jumped back, stumbling as the blade sliced the air where he had stood only a second earlier. The warrior didn't stop. He lunged forward, swinging again, each strike strong enough to cut a tree in half. Evan dodged left, then right, rolling across the dirt as Kareth smashed his fist into the ground. Cracking the soil like it was thin ice, Riva screamed, "Stop! Please stop!" But Kareth ignored her cries. His mind was convinced Evan was a threat. Evan ducked behind a tree, chest burning, lungs screaming for air. Kareth ripped the tree out of the ground with one hand and threw it aside. Like it was nothing. Evan staggered back. He couldn't win. But still. He didn't run. He lifted his arms and stood firm. "Come on," Evan yelled, his voice loud and raw. "If you want me, take me. But leave the girl alone." Kareth paused, not because of fear, but because something impossible was happening. Even after everything, the attacks, the danger, the threats, Evan was still protecting Riva. Riva ran forward and stood between them again, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Uncle, stop. Can't you see? He protected me all night. He didn't let the hunters take me. He didn't ask for anything." Kareth's chest rose in a sharp breath. He stared at her, then at Evan, then at her again. Slowly, painfully, the warrior lowered his blade. His voice was different now, softer, confused. You trust him?" Riva nodded, wiping her face. "Yes." Kareth's shoulders dropped slightly. For the first time, the deadliest warrior of her tribe looked unsure. He stepped back, placing his blade in its sheath. Then he said words Evan never expected to hear. "If she trusts you, then I must reconsider." Evan exhaled shakily. The fight was over. For a long moment, Kareth said nothing. He just stood there, his huge hands clenched at his sides, breathing heavily as he fought against everything he had ever believed. The forest stayed silent around him, as if waiting for his decision. Even the wind refused to move. Riva stepped closer to him, her small fingers shaking as she reached for his arm. "Uncle," she whispered gently, "if he wanted to hurt me, he would have done it long before you arrived." Kareth didn't turn to look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on Evan, cold and sharp, but no longer filled with rage. Instead, there was something else there now. Something like confusion. And a small seed of doubt. Evan stood still, chest rising and falling, his shirt torn, his arms scratched from dodging Kareth's strikes. Even though he was injured, he didn't step back. He didn't hide behind Riva. He stood in front of her like a shield that refused to break. Kareth finally spoke, his voice deep and slow. "Why?" he asked Evan. "Why protect her? She is not your kind. She is not your blood." Evan wiped sweat from his forehead. "Do you need a reason to save a child? She was in danger. I was there. That's it." Kareth stared at him longer, trying to understand a logic he had never been taught. In his tribe, loyalty was earned through blood, battle, and sacrifice, not through simple kindness. His people believed humans were selfish creatures, who cared only for themselves, yet here stood a human who had risked everything for someone who wasn't. Even his own species. The ground hummed lightly as Kareth finally lowered his head just a little. Not a bow, not respect, yet but a sign that he was thinking. Riva walked to Evan's side and held his sleeve as if to prove her point. "He kept me warm last night," she said softly. "He gave me his jacket. He didn't sleep because he watched the cave entrance for hunters. He didn't even let me cry too loudly because he was afraid they'd hear." Kareth swallowed. The blue flames in his eyes dimmed slightly. "He bled because of you," she added, pointing at the scratches on Evan's arms. Kareth's jaw tightened. His voice came out low. "I saw his blood on the ground." Evan shrugged. "Well, you caused most of it." Riva gasped and tugged his sleeve hard. "Don't make jokes." "Not now." For the first time, Kareth let out a breath that almost sounded like a growl mixed with irritation. Maybe, but not anger. He stepped closer to Evan, towering over him like a mountain of muscle and armor. Evan didn't move. Kareth studied him long and carefully. Then he said, "Human, you fought without striking back. That is rare. Even among my own warriors." "I wasn't fighting you," Evan replied. "I was protecting her." Kareth stared a moment longer. Then slowly, he bent one knee and placed his hand on the ground, a gesture that made Riva's eyes widen in surprise. "Uncle," she whispered. You kneel for him?" Kareth didn't look at her. "I kneel for no one," he corrected. "Not even the king." He looked up at Evan, eyes glowing softer now. "This is not a bow. This is a sign of truth. I see your intentions. I see your courage." Evan blinked. He didn't fully understand the gesture, but Riva did. Her face lit with relief. Kareth stood and spoke again, more firmly now. "The hunters who chased Riva. They belong to a criminal group. They seek royal children for ransom. They will return." Evan tightened his fists. "Then we stop them." Kareth nodded once. "Yes, but you cannot face them alone." He paused. "You will stand with me. A human who protects one of our children has the right to fight beside a warrior." Riva smiled for the first time, her eyes bright with hope. "So he can come with us?" Kareth looked at Evan and gave a slow, heavy nod. "If he wishes." Evan glanced at Riva's hopeful face. Then at Kareth's powerful stance. He knew his peaceful life was over, but he also knew he couldn't walk away. "I'll come," Evan said, The forest finally exhaled. As if relieved, Kareth placed a hand on Evan's shoulder heavy. Strong and full of new respect. "Then today," he said, "you stand as our ally." But none of them knew. The journey to the Stone Valley took the entire afternoon. The sun crawled across the sky slowly, as if it was watching the three travelers Evan, Riva, and Kareth walk deeper into the forest. Evan carried Riva on his back when she became tired, while Kareth walked ahead like a silent shadow, his eyes sharp and aware of every sound. The closer they came to the valley, the more the forest changed. The trees grew twisted, their branches curling like claws. Strange blue mist floated near the ground. Even the air tasted metallic, like a storm was coming. "This place," Evan whispered, "doesn't feel friendly." Kareth answered without turning. "It is not. Many dark things hide here. The hunters use it as their ground." Riva tightened her arms around Evan's neck. She could feel danger too. Her glowing mark pulsed lightly, reacting to the presence of evil nearby. When they reached the edge of the valley, Evan froze. The Stone Valley was a huge open field surrounded by tall gray rocks shaped like broken teeth. Dozens of caves were carved into the walls, dark, silent mouths waiting to swallow anyone who entered. The wind that blew across the valley carried whispers. Or maybe it was just Evan's imagination. Kareth raised a hand. "Be ready. They will know we are here." Evan set Riva down gently. "Stay behind me," he told her. Kareth gave him a serious look. "Behind us. You are not alone." That small sentence gave Evan surprising strength. They stepped into the valley. Instantly, the air grew heavier. The shadows in the caves moved. Evan gripped a broken tree branch tightly, his only weapon. Kareth drew his twin blades, the metal glowing bright blue. Riva whispered, "They are watching." So many. And then everything happened at once. A sharp whistle cut the air. Kareth pushed Evan aside just as a glowing projectile shot through the air and exploded against a rock. 3 hunters leapt out from a cave, landing silently like wolves. Their red weapons pulsed with dangerous energy. "Spread out," Kareth ordered. Evan took Riva's hand and pulled her back behind a boulder just as a second group attacked. Kareth moved like a storm. His blades sliced through the air, clashing against the hunters' weapons. Sparks flew. The ground shook. Every strike from him sounded like thunder. But more hunters appeared climbing rocks, jumping from shadows surrounding them. Evan stepped in front of Riva, swinging his branch with all his strength. A hunter lunged at him, but Evan blocked the blow and pushed him back. Another came from the right, but Evan ducked just in time. Kareth saw it and shouted, "Good! Use their weight against them." Evan didn't feel like he was doing good. He felt like he was barely staying alive, but he kept fighting. Riva suddenly shouted, "Evan! Behind you!" He spun just in time to see a hunter aiming a glowing dagger at his chest. Before the dagger could strike, a huge shape slammed into the attacker. Kareth. The warrior grabbed the hunter and threw him across the valley like a rag doll. "Stay alert, human." Evan exhaled shakily. "I am trying." More hunters emerged now, at least 15, maybe more. Riva's mark began glowing brighter, lighting the ground around her. The hunters hissed angrily. The mark meant danger for them. One hunter yelled, "Grab the girl, now!" Evan pushed Riva behind a rock just as 2 hunters rushed towards her. Kareth roared and charged toward them, blades spinning like blue lightning. "No one touches her!" he thundered. The ground cracked under his feet as he fought. Evan joined from the other side, hitting one hunter in the knee, then tackling him to the ground. The battle turned chaotic. Energy blasts hit rocks. Dust filled the air. Kareth fought like a beast of legend. Evan fought like a man who refused to surrender. And Riva used her voice. "Left! Behind you, jump! Guiding both of them, saving their lives again and again. Finally, Kareth drove his blade into the ground, sending a shockwave that knocked the last few hunters off their feet. Evan knocked one unconscious with a final swing of his wooden branch. The valley fell silent. Only heavy breathing remained. Kareth stood tall, chest heaving, blades dripping with energy. Evan leaned against a rock, panting, sweat and dust covering him. Riva ran to them and hugged them both tightly. You did it. We did it. Kareth placed a large hand on Evan's shoulder. Human, today you fought like one of us. Evan smiled weakly. I think I broke my branch. Kareth didn't laugh, but his eyes softened with pride. He looked at Riva. Let us return home. Our tribe must know what happened. He looked back at Evan. And you will walk beside us. Evan nodded. The lonely human who once lived quietly in the forest was no longer alone.